Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the KBF MPI and Customs webinar on the DTR project updates. Before you start, you are reminded that there must be no discussion of prices, surcharges, fees, cost, particular customers, revenue, market share, or any commercially sensitive topics. Please also be reminded that you may not have discussions whether they involve prices, amount, or areas. All right, from now I'm going to let Sylvester start from the MPI team. Hi, Sylvester.
Yeah, thank you, Karine. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, KBF, for organizing this webinar. On the call, I have our MPI project folk, Dunya, Carlos, and Daniel, who will be supporting me on this call. Unfortunately, Emma from KBF from Toll won't be on the panel today. She's traveling overseas on work at the moment. So purpose of today's meeting is to give you a quick update on where we're at with DTR. We'll talk about phase 2 pilot. We will remind everyone of what the DTR scope is about and a quick slide on the upcoming mandate. Now, this is also an opportunity for you to ask questions. So we have the team on the panel who may be able to answer some technical questions or any process related questions. So feel free to ask those questions after we've finished our update. Thank you, Daniel. So as I do always, what is DTR for people who've joined this for the first time? DTR, or domestic transshipment request, is a request to move uncleared cargo from one facility to another. And by facility, we mean the ports or any custom controlled area and a transitional facility. It is required. Through trade single window. So it's either submitted using trade single window online or your own B2B system. So that you can submit your DTRs and the agencies will assess quickly and approve, decline, or hold those requests. Now, the intention is to remove the collector's permits from the mandate date in a phased manner. And if you're using this to move containers, FAK containers from the port, it will replace the BACC application process as well. DTRs are not the final clearance for that internal for the goods. It is just an approval to move goods, uncleared goods around the country. Now, we broke this down into 3 phases. Phase 1, it was basically to move an FAK container from the port to a CCA or from the port to the CCA through an inland port, example, Metroport. Now, that phase is onboarding at the moment. We've onboarded quite a few freight forwarders onto that process, and that onboarding process will continue till the mandate, and thereafter we will still have a few people left to join. Phase 2 is moving LCL consignments from one CCATF to another CCATF, and we've changed that to onboarding because we had kicked off the pilot about the middle of a month ago. We've had a few people join. So that's onboarding 2. Phase 3 is our final phase, which is basically containers, uncleared containers or cargo moving from port to port via the sea pathway. We are currently testing that process with ports. If you remember, there are 12 ports that need to make changes to their systems, and there are 24 shipping companies who need to update their DTR submissions as well. So it's a busy period trying to get all those through in the next transition phase, which is basically from the 1st of July till the 3rd of July to the 1st of October. Right, I'll hand over to Daniel to give you a bit more detail.
Perfect, thanks, Sylvester. So this is for phase 1, our pilot partner status and the status of submissions. So as of 13th June 2023, the FAK volume on DTRs is 83.13%. So last time it was recorded last week and we were sitting at 81%. So we're getting more submissions and submitters coming on board. So that's always good to see progress increase every week. And we hope to get to 90% hopefully before the mandate. So keep jumping on board and sending your submissions through. This one was recorded yesterday as well, so this is pretty much the total FAK applications and containers by port of discharge. So on the left, we currently have 1,821 DTR submissions received to date and 1,824 containers that have been moved. On this graph right here, the number of applications, we're currently sitting at about 350. Across June, so hopefully towards the end of this month we can see another shoot up where the graph will reach anywhere between 400 to 600. That will be the ideal scenario. And for the bottom, the applications and containers by port of discharge, we currently have Auckland with about 1,500 containers being submitted for movement in that area, followed by Tauranga and Littleton. And the key points for phase one is pretty much after monitoring the submissions recently, just remember to include the attachments, the manifest document, quarantine declaration, and bill of lading. And for each submission, just enter in the quarantine declaration answers, and these are the yes/no combination. And there's 5 of them. So if you could do that, that would be amazing. Now I'll hand over to Carlos to talk about phase 2.
Thanks, Daniel. As Sylvester previously mentioned, so about a month ago to the day, we kicked off phase 2 pilots of ours looking at the movement of LCL consignments or DVAN cargo out of FAK container, moving from one CCATF to another CCATF. So would like more people to jump on board. So if you have these movements, then please start using the DTR process for these kind of movements. If you go to the customs website, which is on the screen here, you'll be able to hit the little tab which says domestic transshipment request. That's where all the information sheets and FAQs and things like that are currently located. And there's a section in there around the kind of rules and what you need to enter, like what information you need to enter for those LCL movements. Cool. And just again, just reiterating, when does a DTR apply? So for containerized cargo, looking at FAK containers, so what we call freight of all kinds. So that's your groupage containers with multiple importers. That is in scope. That's the main use of phase 1. So it's really looking at FAK movements from the port to your CCATF. Also LCL consignments, which is also in scope. So that's phase 2. So that's on the way. So yeah, we'd like everyone to start using that process. Empty containers, again, out of scope for the DTR. You don't need to do a DTR request to move empty containers. They're cleared at port discharge. And bulk cargo arriving in whole vessels, again, out of scope for DTR. Now we put down break bulk, so bulk cargo coming in on a ship's deck with no container associated to it, and FCLs as partial. Because for port-to-port movements via sea, a DTR is requested for both break bulk and FCL containers. If you're moving a container from, say, Auckland Port to Littleton Port, and it's going by sea, both agencies will be approving that movement on a DTR request. It's probably not so applicable to you folk on the call, as this will mainly be done by shipping companies. For land-based movements, when submitting a DTR, the DTR process will be approved for customs. It'll be declined by MPI because the stance that was agreed upon was that FCLs and break bulk moving inland to a TF, say from a port to a TF, will still require a import declaration to be submitted. There are some exceptional circumstances where for some reason the import declaration cannot be submitted when the goods have arrived at the port, and there's a DTR process specifically set up for that. And lastly, DTR should not be used for movement of cargo for customs exam or for dangerous goods off the port. Current processes remain for that. Thank you.
Cool, thanks, Carlos. So a reminder of the mandate dates. DTR will be mandated on the 3rd of July. Now the port companies are getting ready and they will become compliant between the 3rd of July to the 1st of September. There's a window of time by which ports will be coming on board. We will verify them and they will become DTR active. Those ports that are DTR active will apply the DTR rules from 3rd of July. So for example, if Port of Auckland was DTR active, then they will stop accepting collectors permits and they will look for a DTR to be able to release a container to get out of port. In a phased manner, collectors permits will be phased out from 3rd of July and will no longer be able to be used at those DTR active ports. Yeah, so that's pretty much the reminder of what that mandate looks like. Thanks, Daniel. Okay, I'll open up for questions now. So if you have any questions for the team or questions about DTR in general, raise your hand or type it in the Q&A box and we'll get to it. Is there anyone on the call who's not yet submitted DTRs, who's concerned about how to get started?
Hi, Sylvester, can you see the question in the Q&A box?
Oh, hold on a second. Yes, I can. Okay. For LCL DTR, can you please advise date when collector's permit cannot be used? This is pretty much from the 3rd of July. Replacing BACC in what circumstance? So that's your question, Pauline, as in what circumstances will a BACC be replaced? This is, Carlos, do you want to pick this one up?
Yep, so currently for things like FAK movements, like FAK container movements, all those applications are manually screened by MPI officers and then a BACC is issued. So in that's really the key thing, is that for DTR requests, you're not really going to be getting a BACC anymore. It's going to be done through DTR notifications. This is really dependent on what system you're using. If you are using a system, so if you're using a B2B service provider system, so like the likes of like things like CargoWise and things, the DTR responses give you the approval to move, so you won't be getting a BACC issued. If you are using emailed TSW email notifications, then it'll be done through the email notifications from TSW.
Okay, there's a question from Rolig, New Zealand. When a full container is held for customs exams, how will DTR work? Carlos would have just pointed out in that slide that customs exams are out of the scope of DTR. It will follow the current process that customs follow using their planners email process for that container to be moved and a BACC application. Could you please give a rundown on how best to get onboarded to submit DTRs for the first time? Instructions for that. the first step would be to email dtr@mpi.govt.nz. So that's the first one. We will send you instructions, information on what you need to submit, how to interpret those email notifications and so on, things that you can give to the receiving CCA. And it'll also depend on what system you use. So if you're on one of the standard systems like CargoWise or Speedy, Expedient, they've all been tested by others, so they do work. So feel free to reach out first in the first instance, and then we can help you get onboarded. Next question. If our system provider cannot have LCL DTR function ready, can extension be given to use a collector's permit to move under bond? I'm not sure of that. I'll need to take that back to customs and MPI and get a confirmation on that extension date. This is not something I can comment on right now. But it'll be scenario dependent, but feel free to reach out to us and or give us more detail on what that complication might be. Are there any other questions or concerns from anyone?
I was just thinking now, because this last question was posted under anonymous, do you want maybe to send me this question with your email address so we can reply to you, or I can forward Sylvester's response directly to you? I'm sorry, I'm not sure who to address. It says anonymous attendee. The question about the LCL DTR function. I'm going to.
Yeah, there are two anonymous attendee questions. So yeah, for the last one, yes, please send through your question.
Yeah, I've put in my email address in the webinar chat if you want to send me that query directly, so we can follow it up for you.
Cool. If there aren't any other questions, I will give you some time back. Our next webinar will be in a week's time. Emma will be back for that. We're hoping to do some demo in that webinar and go into a bit more detail. And then following that, the next webinar will be just prior to the mandate date. So we will have a bit more information then as well. So I would recommend you to join or share the link around, and feel free to join before the mandate date while we still have support to help you get onboarded. Can we get a copy of the presentation? Absolutely. Daniel will send it out. You'll get one from the DTR mailbox. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon. Thanks for joining. And thanks, CABAF, once again for organizing this webinar.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.